Good day, grade 12s. Today we will look at the final 4 problem-solving techniques that you need to know. These are the nominal group technique, scamper, brainstorming, and the force combination. Once again, you will need to be able to explain each of these techniques as well as its impact on the business. So, let's start today's lesson by looking at the nominal group technique. Like all other techniques, we start off by clearly defining the problem. All the staff that are involved in this particular problem-solving process are brought together to get a clear understanding of what the problem is. Because we know if we don't have a clear understanding of what the problem is, we might generate solutions that are not appropriate for the particular problem that we have. So in order to get appropriate solutions, we need to have a clear understanding of what the problem is, what the causes are, and why it is a problem. So once all the employees have a clear understanding of what the problem is, they are divided into smaller groups. Within each of the smaller groups, each person will, on their own, develop as many ideas or solutions as possible. So this is done on your own to ensure that you are focused, to ensure that you are concentrating, to make sure that nobody is stifling your creativity. So in this process, each person is doing this quietly and silently so that they can be as productive and as focused as they possibly can be. Once each person has developed their idea or ideas, they will then have a chance to present the idea to each of the other group members. At this point, you want to appoint somebody to document all the possible solutions. So, for example, in each of these groups, there are about between 5 and 6 people, so we should get at least 5 solutions. So, once we have all the solutions documented and everybody has had a chance to explain their idea or their solution, we're going to have an anonymous vote. So we will not know who's voting for our idea or who is not voting for our idea. Once we've voted anonymously and calculated the result of that vote, we will rank the ideas in order of most popular to least popular. Once we've got this ranking and we've got an idea of what the most popular idea is, all the groups will then come together. So at this point, each of the groups or the smaller groups would have gone through this process, and each of the smaller groups would have a most popular idea. They will then come and each group will have a chance to explain their most popular ideas to the entire group. And then from this, we'll possibly go into another brainstorming session where we can develop the ideas further. So the idea behind this is to get as much input as we possibly can within a focused environment. We do this process until the problem is solved. The nominal group technique provides a number of positive and negative impacts on the business. Let's have a look at the positive impact first. So firstly, it provides time to think about the problem before addressing it, which means we are not rushing into finding solutions. Then, each team member has a chance to participate without interference from other team members due to the fact that you are brainstorming in silence. Voting on the ideas is done anonymously, and this may be more reliable or more honest because people are not being intimidated into voting into a particular idea or voting for a particular person. Everyone in the group is given an opportunity to contribute to the discussion while avoiding the likelihood of one person dominating this process. This is because the process allows time for each person to provide their feedback. Those were the positive impacts of the nominal group technique on the business. Let's have a look at the negative impacts on the business. So firstly, it minimizes the discussion process, and this does not allow for the full development of ideas because ideas cannot be criticized during the process. The ideas or inputs made by members may not work with each other, making finding a common solution very difficult. Suggestions may not be as creative as when the group develops the ideas together, because we are only looking at individual ideas. The process can be very time consuming as each member must have an opportunity to make their presentation. The small group limits participation and groups are usually pre-selected, thus limiting creativity. I hope that you have a clear understanding of the nominal group technique in terms of how it works, as well as the impact that it has on the business. Let's take a look at our next technique, which is Scamper. Scamper is an acronym that's used for this particular problem-solving technique. Each letter of the word Scamper has a purpose. The S is for substitute, where we try and find substitutes or replace part of the problem with something new. So wherever we have a problem, we try and find a substitute which will eliminate that particular problem. C is for combine, where we arrange part of the problem in a creative way to cancel out the problem. A is for adapt, where we look at the existing solutions and try and adapt them to the current problems that we are facing, because sometimes old solutions work for current problems. M is for modify, where we add parts to a product according to the needs of the customers. We continuously have to look at what the customer's demands are and adapt our products or modify our products in such a way that our products now meet the demands of the customers. This will ensure that we gain as many customers as possible. P is for put to other use, where we make changes so that we use something for another purpose. So here we try and look at all the resources that we have and see how many ways we could possibly use them. This helps with creativity and with problem solving. E is for eliminate, where we get rid of parts of the problems by eliminating any unnecessary processes. R is for reverse or rearrange, where we change the order in which we do things so that we can think differently. This helps with creativity and might help with a problem-solving process. Let's take a look at a video showing how a Scamper technique could possibly be used. Let's take a look at the positive and negative impacts of Scamper on the business. Firstly, it encourages people to come up with new and innovative solutions. The process of rearranging and combining different components of a business procedure allows for participants to examine each step and evaluate creativity and productivity within their process. It frees the participants' minds to look in unexpected places for answers to the problems that they might have in the business. It can also reveal where obstacles and bottlenecks occur in current practices and develop solutions to combat these barriers. It also forces people to think differently. Those were the positive impacts of Scamper on the business. Let's have a look at the negative impacts of Scamper. The success of Scamper depends on the group being unconventional, because unconventional people will come up with unconventional solutions, creativity. It is very time consuming and not suitable for all groups. The problem solving technique we will be looking at next is the brainstorming technique. Let's take a look at that. When using the brainstorming as a problem solving technique, it's important that we are firstly going to define or state what the problem is. We need to be able to make sure that all the participants or all the stakeholders involved in the brainstorming process have a clear idea of what the problem is that they need to solve. Members will have an opportunity to state what they think the possible causes are of the problems, because it is important to know what the causes are of the problems before we can come up with a viable solution to solving that particular problem. During a brainstorming process, we need to set a time limit for each brainstorming session. The idea behind the time limit is to make sure that everybody is focused on solving the problem during that brainstorming session. We will often find that if we don't have a time limit for something, we will talk about other things not pertaining to problem solving, which means we will end up wasting a lot of time. So if we add a time limit to that brain session, we will make sure that people are focused on what they need to do, because they only have a limited time within which to have as many possible suggestions as possible. Then during a brainstorming procedure, it's important to write down all the ideas that come up. And also as important as writing down the ideas is making sure that those ideas are visible at all times. So what people normally do during boardroom meetings, if they're doing a brainstorming process, is they will normally write these ideas on large pieces of paper and stick this up on the wall so that everybody involved in the process can see them at all times. In a more technological environment, people might use applications such as Padlet, which will allow every participant to make suggestions at any point in time, and then at the same time all other participants can see what the idea is. So the idea behind this is to make sure that at any point in time all participants in the brainstorming process are able to see all the different ideas, because we are not all creative at the same point in time. So you might have an idea now and I might not be able to build on that idea now, but in 10 or 15 or 20 minutes time, if I look at that idea again, I might be able to add some input. So it's important for me to be able to see that idea whenever I look at all the information. So the main idea behind the brainstorming is to make sure that we use each suggestion to inspire new thoughts. So we need to build on each other's thoughts, because I might not be able to come up with a good idea, but if you come up with a good idea, I might be able to add valuable input and build on that idea. So we want to build on each other's thoughts or suggestions. It's important to remember that during the brainstorming process, we want as much positive input as possible. So we cannot criticize or judge any of the ideas that may come up during the brainstorming process. If we judge or criticize the ideas, then we might break someone's confidence down and they might not want to add any more input into that brainstorming process. Also, we do not want to discuss all the ideas in too much detail, because we are working with a time limit. The idea is not to solve the problem necessarily in the brainstorming process, but to come up with as many possible solutions as we possibly can. At a later stage, once we've brainstormed, we can then develop all the different ideas and have proper discussions on them at a later stage. Brainstorming also has a number of positive and negative impacts. So let's look at the positive impacts. So firstly, With brainstorming, better solutions are developed through collaboration because we all know that teamwork makes the dream work. Working together helps build better ideas. The combinations of different ideas can also be chosen. Then, employees are motivated as they can contribute to the problem-solving process. They are part of the team, part of the decision, so they are quite motivated, which stimulates creativity in the workplace. Then there are also negative impacts, where brainstorming is very time-consuming and takes time to develop all the different ideas and to criticize and build on all the ideas. Some team members tend to dominate the discussion, which may result in other members not being able to contribute, or other people switching off during the process as they didn't want to listen to those who are dominating the brainstorming session. Sometimes the fear of criticism may prevent full participation, as people who do not want to be criticized will not give their ideas. Then this brings us to the final problem-solving technique, which is the forced combination. In the forced combination, we might give employees a random word or picture or object, and we'll tell them to look at this random word or picture and object and create connections between these objects or pictures or words and the problem that we are facing. The idea is that the employees should ask themselves how this word or picture or object can help them solve the problem. This technique forces people to think outside of the box. It gives them a little bit of work in terms of taking an idea and building on it without having much information. So the creative ideas can be developed really well with this technique. So grade 12s, that brings us to the end of this section of work on creative thinking and problem solving. I hope that you have a clear understanding of all the different problem solving techniques as well as their impact on the business. Please remember that if you have any questions, please add these questions to the Google Doc and I will be sure to answer your questions there. Thank you for watching. See you next time.